A handful of Studio Ghibli employees have started their own production company and made their first movie, Mary and the Witch's Flower. Is it as good as a Ghibli production? Well, let's talk about it. The story follows Mary. Mary is a young girl who's a bit of a klutz who looks down on herself. But one day she stumbles upon a magic flower and a broomstick that transports her to a magical college filled with quirky characters. Quirky characters who all mistake Mary for a powerful witch and praise her abilities, even though she's really just succeeding at everything by accident and by coincidence. But she goes along with the praise since it's something she isn't used to. Of course, eventually, conflict arises and a daring magical adventure begins. But the cause of that is sort of a spoiler. I'd say the strongest aspect of the film's story is how it hardly wastes time getting to the conflict. The exposition is a bit too slow, but once Mary arrives at the magic school, the movie revs up greatly. You're bombarded with all sorts of creative imagery and very quickly introduced to the villain of the movie. I've heard people comparing this movie to Harry Potter, but I don't think that's quite right. Sure, Mary goes to a magic school, but she never actually attends it. She's introduced to it, then it's immediately used as a set piece for an adventure. The twist is a rather obvious one that's typical for these sorts of movies, and the writers are aware of that, so they don't really treat it like a twist at all. Another interesting spin in the story is how Mary isn't actually interested in magic. She's introduced to the college in one day, and then once she leaves, her first thought is, I'm never going back there again. It only returns because of a conflict she accidentally started. I thought this was a neat idea because it's very typical for these sorts of stories to focus on characters trying to learn magic, but this movie is just greatly focused on being an adventure. Though, that point is both a positive and a negative. It's good that it plays with tropes, but it's bad that it prevents a bit of character development and world building. I would have loved to see more of the school since it's so creative, but the rush to adventure sort of prevents that. Although that's not to say the movie isn't filled with creative visuals, because it definitely is, but I wish there were even more. Comparing this to Ghibli movies I've seen, I'd say there isn't necessarily stuff you haven't seen before. There are all sorts of wacky creatures and pretty locations, but I found it all to be quite similar to things shown in Castle in the Sky and Howl's Moving Castle. That's not really a bad thing, but the visuals don't feel especially new or unique. Aside from the actual magic, casting spells, the magic flower, the broomsticks, and one monster were very creative and new. Also, I love the design of the scientist character Dr. D. His dub voice acting was very good too. All around I thought the English voice acting was good. Not too spectacular, but it's totally watchable. The music was good as well, but it never really stands out. It's typical magic adventure music. And just some miscellaneous thoughts. I found the male lead character Peter to be very generic. His character serves the story, but they could have done a bit more to make him stand out. Also, he looks like Link from The Legend of Zelda, and there are some scenes where he's put into locations straight out of Breath of the Wild, and I'm just saying that. Also, in general, it's good to see another movie with a strong and realistic female lead. Mary is a character who never gives up, and she grows brave and confident as the movie progresses. According to interviews, the director wanted this movie to teach kids they should never give up and not worry about the future, and that moral definitely shows through. So in conclusion, Mary and the Witch's Flower feels like a very classic film. It's the type of thing that anyone can watch, have fun with, and learn from. It provides a surprisingly unique plot and some very strong visuals and characters. It may be a tad similar to fantasy anime from the past, but is that really a bad thing? This is a fun film anyone can watch whether you're an anime fan or not. Honestly, this is the only Ghibli-esque movie I've seen that I think could benefit from a sequel. The film concludes fine like other anime movies do, but there's so much creative potential introduced in this movie that I'd love to see more of. Anyways, hope you check it out if you're interested. Thanks for watching.